The Missing Parts of History by AlexandraSuominen. Chapter 4 4/8/1953 Talks. Orion was amused, horrified, scared, awed, extremely worried. You name it. He had a time traveler in his home. A very young, partially war-scarred, terrified time traveler. He was thin, nervous, anxious, and temperamental. In the few hours they had talked the past afternoon, he had discovered that asking questions around an issue was a sure way to get snarked or screamed at. It didn't mean Harry didn't apologize for his behavior, or that he didn't try to control it, but he had simply taken to asking direct questions instead of his usual method of prying information out of others subtly. Whenever Harry looked doubtful about saying something, he reassured the teenager that it was fine not to say something if he thought it could be dangerous or just didn't know the answer. It had worked like a charm. Harry had relaxed, and Orion had eventually let go of the heavy topics, and they had just chatted. Harry, of course, had spent the night. As much of a Potter as he was, they couldn't explain where he had come from just yet. The Department of Mysteries would need to be informed. He had always thought that the Unspeakables were a creepy bunch, and they had so many secrets that it was hard to trust them, but it was a necessity to inform them of what had happened. They didn't know how long Harry would remain in the past, and if he ever went back to his own time, he may not want to have to fake being a teenager. It was all very hypothetical right now, though. Orion wasn't looking forward to it. He was about to go call the teen to breakfast when he came down. Orion had searched for some of his old clothes, just a shirt and some pants, and had Creature resize them. They suited him better than the rags of yesterday, if a bit baggy still. Nothing but food could fix that, though. Resizing clothes wasn't a perfect method. He had the sleeves rolled up so he could see his wand in one of his old dragonhide holsters, and two equally horrifying scars. A jagged, long scar, product of a knife done to hurt, and a puncture wound of almost 2 inches in diameter. Just what could make such an incision, and why wasn't it healed properly? "Good morning." "Good morning, Air Black." That was another thing. Harry made faces at needed addresses, but he hadn't once called him by anything but his title. Orion had noticed he hated it, though, and entertained the thought of just telling the teen to call him by his family name, but it was too soon for that. He gestured at the table, and Harry sat. They didn't talk over breakfast, but Orion watched him subtly. Harry had horrible table manners. He was trying, but it wasn't natural. The amount of food he took was also negligible, even though there was more than enough for 5 people, let alone 2. But Harry was a Potter. It made no sense. Potters may not be the most traditionalist of the pureblood society, but they were a most ancient and noble house. They wouldn't let an heir grow up without manners. Had things changed in the future? It felt rude to ask, but at the same time, he couldn't just not, because if Harry hadn't been taught properly, maybe his parents' deaths when he was young developed into more issues down the line, then shouldn't Orion at least make an effort for whatever short time they were together? You can ask, you know. He was startled out of his thoughts. He hadn't been caught staring, but Harry seemed to be able to sense that he was thinking about him deeply somehow. Your table manners, the way you speak, the way you behave, it's not normal for a pureblood. It's strange, and while I don't doubt your claim on being a Potter, they wouldn't have let you out of the manor without a single lesson on proper manners and etiquette. He didn't know how to phrase the question, so he hoped Harry wouldn't mind the way he had indirectly phrased it. That. He seemed uncomfortable now. My dad was a Potter, but my mother was Muggle-born. By the time I was born, it was only my parents and I. I was told there were no other close family members on my magical side to take me in, so I was left with my mother's family instead. That's a mess. Who even made that decision? Harry shrugged. He had to tell him to stop doing that, but maybe later. That they had abandoned a magical child with muggles? No wonder Harry had such problems. He blinked. And your godfather? Complicated. It wasn't in his hands. He tried his best, but I wasn't given to him. Harry should have been raised a black, even distantly. If what the boy was saying was the truth, then he must be the head of the house. Not the Lord, because he would have needed to inherit the full family magic for that, and you needed to be of age, which he wasn't. And he didn't even know it, did he? Orion had just been given a blank slate to paint in. But, no, his Aunt Doria had married a Potter. He was at least honor-bound enough to help the boy without hidden intentions or manipulations. To do otherwise would be like letting the whole Potter family die off, and it would reflect badly on the House of Black if it ever came out. What do you know about the Potters? It doesn't have to be much, but one of my family members married into the family, and as I'm the only one who knows you, I should at least point you towards learning more about them. Honestly, it was a disservice of everyone around you to leave you ignorant for so long. I don't really know anything. He was going to talk, but Harry continued. Not that I didn't want to, at some point. Growing up, my mother's sister made sure that the only thing I knew about my parents were the worst kind of lies, and the moment I discovered they were not true, I was so saturated by the magic and going to boarding school, and no support and nobody to ask, and at some point, knowing about long-dead people was less important than trying to survive in a world that seemed to worship me for surviving and becoming an orphan. I just wanted to escape it. And since nobody encouraged me into it either, I thought I could just wait until things got better. He didn't know what to say. If he had been in the same situation, he would have wanted to learn everything. But at the same time, it would have been such an overwhelming situation that he couldn't think he would have had the time either. But it was still unacceptable for a scion of an ancient line to not know his history. He wanted to curse whoever was in charge of making decisions for the boy when he was an infant. Well, you have time now. Maybe not to learn about your parents or grandparents, if they are even alive now, but you could learn about your history. Yeah, I suppose. Shouldn't I be thinking about how to get back to my own time? Do you remember the magic that brought you here? No. Do you remember what kind of object it was? No. Then I can tell you now, I've never heard of such a kind of time travel that can send people back for decades like you seem to have. Even if you were to find information on it, it would be biased, theoretical, or so restricted it would be illegal to have. Harry seemed downtrodden at that, but he didn't think the boy could stand to live in a lie. I'm not saying you should give up, but it shouldn't stop you from living until then. Take today to put your thoughts in order. Relax. Eat some more while you're at it. Harry rolled his eyes, but took some food. Not much. So Orion decided to be satisfied for now. He could fix everything else later. Were you enrolled in Hogwarts? Black asked. They were in the library, or, well, Harry had been allowed in, and Black had left for his office. But that had been a couple of hours earlier, and now he seemed to have come searching for him. He had found a book on recent history and a couple of newspapers, and decided to learn just what was going on in this time period. Black didn't comment on his reading choice, so he thought it was okay. Yeah, why? I was thinking about what to do about you, but I don't think going there as an exchange student would be a good idea. He frowned. Don't look at me like that. If I were to put you beside Charles Potter right now and ask a stranger who's who, they would only differentiate you two by your eyes. It would cause a lot of questions, too. Why would a Potter with no connection to his family suddenly enter Hogwarts for, what, 4th year? 5th. Even worse. Okay, so what do I do? As far as I know, I need at least my OWLs, Harry asked, tense. You study on your own and pass them at the ministry. But my identity, yeah, too many questions. He rolled his eyes. Black rolled up a parchment and hit him with it over his head without much force. Hey! Don't roll your eyes and don't interrupt someone when they're talking. No, we need Gringotts and the Ministry on our side. Harry groaned and avoided another hit with the parchment. Why the Ministry? Black arched one of his stupidly perfect eyebrows. Because if one day you return to your own time, you'll want to be able to claim your OWLs and NEWTs as your own, as well as any other titles, job history, and identity profiles you may acquire while here. And the only way to do that is to leave a paper trail, easy to check, with the unspeakables. They'll keep it a secret, that's all they know how to do, unless you want to have to fake being a teenager and have to pass your tests for a second time. Harry grimaced, shaking his head. It would be awful. Good. And the goblins will take whatever fake story the unspeakable craft for you and run with it, so getting your parchment work in order will be easy. Why are the goblins in charge of that? Because they have specialized magic that doesn't allow for copies of fakes to be done without them knowing. Wouldn't ours be a fake? Not if it's accepted by the Ministry. Oh, thanks. Black didn't seem upset at having to explain so many things to him, which was a novelty, and he wondered when the man would run out of patience. So when are we going? I can send a notice to the Unspeakables today, if you wish. It isn't often one calls for an unspeakable to schedule a private meeting, but it can be done. He nodded. All right. I'll leave you to your books then. With any luck, we'll have all of this sorted tomorrow morning. Thank you. For all of this, I mean. I've done nothing others wouldn't have as well. Black paused just before reaching the door and looked back at him. And if we go to Gringotts tomorrow, be prepared to go shopping as well. You cannot wear my cast-offs forever, and my transfigurations aren't all that good. He sighed and nodded. He'd just have to keep a list of everything he owed the man, and hope he could one day return it. It was going to be a lengthy list. He just knew it. Hey guys, Mel here. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, and if you want to see more, consider subscribing. I look forward to bringing you the next chapter. Bye!